Welcome to the Fun2000.com Real Estate Podcast. My name is Chuck Ham, and we've got Oli here with us today.
Hi.
Today, we're going to talk about the real estate purchase agreement. Specifically, we're going to be in the CAR forms, California Association of Realtors Residential Purchase Agreement, since that is the document that is used the most throughout California in residential purchase transactions. And this involves a transaction that you recently had. Oli, do you want to tell us about it?
I was a buyer's agent, and we sent out our offer to the seller's agent.
Right. And then you, a little negotiation started. You got a counter offer back. And basically, you were trying to offer a pretty strong offer, good terms, good price, shortened contingency periods. I would say it was pretty standard, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it was very standard and very good.
It was a good offer. And then you got a counter offer. And what were they asking for on the counter offer, just in general terms?
They were asking for like small changes, but what kind of freaked me out was they wanted my buyers to pay for certain things that I did not agree on.
Well, that's not how our conversation started. So that was the interesting part is how this whole thing started because you had a specific question for me, but just in general, they didn't even counter offer on the price. They were fine with the price because it was a good offer price. They did want to negotiate the commission a little bit, which is a normal part of our purchase, negotiations now these days, ever since last year's change to the MLS rules and negotiating agent compensation. And a couple other small things they wanted to change, among other things. But the thing that we're going to talk about today is Q11. And Q11 is the city transfer tax and fees. So whatever fees would come under a transfer under the rules or laws of the city, the seller was asking that buyer pay for that. And your first reaction was that sounds fine, probably. But really, the issue was in our discussion became, do you actually know what the city transfer tax and fees could possibly be? Q11 was on the counter offer. Q5 is government required point of sale
That
inspections and reports, and that was also on the counter offer. And they wanted, but they were saying that would be paid by the seller, which um, they were agreeing to pay that.
That's after they adjusted that. Initially, they wanted Q4 and 5 to be paid by the buyer, and that's when I came to you and I said, "Hey, what is it?" And you were
Um,
telling me like might be problems with permits, you need to call the city and you need to verify that.
right. And so initially, again, you weren't sure. And this is why we wanted to bring this up with the other agents, both in our office and many other agents. In my 20 plus years experience as an agent and then as a broker, um, I, have seen this repeatedly when you have certain parts of the transaction that are rarely negotiated because they rarely become an issue because lots of cities, they don't have their own transfer taxes and they don't have fees. Throughout California, you will find a lot of cities that just don't have any city fees, or maybe there's no government required point of sale. There's no inspection requirements. There's no permit history requirement. Although here in Ventura County, where we're located now, we do have a couple cities that have that. So we've gotten used to both having it and both not having it. So this issue came up because I think on the buyer side, you guys were ready to just go with what the seller wanted on this. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, my buyers really wanted the house, and we did not understand what it can be, basically.
Right. And that started a discussion, luckily early in the offering, in the negotiation stage, where you're able to research what it is that these government required inspections and reports might be, what these city required transfer taxes and fees might be. And what did you guys discover?
So I had to call the property was in Bakersfield, so I had to call the county, I had to call Bakersfield City, verify that this house was within the limits of the Bakersfield City, and then I asked them to check if there are any open permits on the property or any other outstanding permits that we don't know of. And they told me that there actually were two issues. The first one, so the property was newish, and originally the inspections for the new property, for the new builders, were not completely done. So the inspector came and checked the property, but didn't fully approve it. There were some issues that they had to fix. And somehow the buyers were able to purchase this house, but those issues are still there and they cannot. So the city was not able to issue the certificate of occupancy. So our basically, if we would accept their counter offer as is, we would have to pay for those inspections to be done and for those corrections to be done.
Right. So the issue isn't really that you can't purchase a property without those reports and fees and things getting resolved. You would just be buying the property subject to those things still getting resolved. So it passes the burden from the seller to the buyer once the buyer takes title to the property, right?
Yeah. And it's a pain in the butt.
And this discussion isn't really that interesting to those people that are used to going through this all the time, but there are so many transactions and so many agents that don't really get to this point because the seller agrees to take care of it, and therefore, and I think what happens is sellers don't take care of it because the buyers at that point are they're not really inquiring because the sellers have taken on the duty of inquiring. The buyers at that point, because the seller has accepted the duty and the responsibility of the government required points of sale, inspections, reports, city transfer taxes, fees, and potentially county as well. The buyers just accept that whatever the sellers have done already is going to be fine. And then they find out years later that the seller should have taken care of these reports, this permit, these now transfer taxes, on the other hand, that would have been caught by escrow. So escrow would say, because they have to do their due diligence and that money is required up front at the point of sale. So that's the difference here is there are some required point of sale corrective remedial actions and others that are just things that a buyer can take subject to these issues remaining unresolved for forever, I guess.
And I want to add that in this specific case, the escrow did let me know that they will not be able to close unless we have the certificate of occupancy. So we were on it, and the seller was working hard to get the certificate.
So I wonder if that, and I don't know myself, if that was because that certificate of occupancy was a required point of sale inspection or permit or report. Do you know?
I think it was because so what the city, Bakersfield city agent told me on the phone that they will not be able to sell the house unless they will correct those
Okay.
inspections.
So that is, in fact, a point of sale requirement.
Yeah.
The other issue that if it wasn't a point of sale requirement, you could still have the mortgage company if they were to find out that there was no permit or some kind of required remedial action, corrective work. They could say, well, we're not going to lend on this house until it gets resolved.
Yeah. And I wouldn't know that information unless I would be calling the city and researching and doing all of those things. And if I would accept it as is, my buyers would have to, if they would want to still have
Mhm.
this house, would have to pay for all of this and go
Mhm.
through it. And they don't need to. It's not their responsibility. It's actually seller's responsibility.
Right now, if you didn't negotiate this properly up front, if you didn't do this research before signing the agreement, before your buyers signed the agreement, then the escrow company would have decided that, well, we need this. Therefore, the buyers are going to have to pay because that's what you agreed to.
Yeah.
That would have
Because
that would have
if
been very
not,
difficult.
they would be breaching the contract. It would be on the buyers.
Hmm. So what was the total cost at that point? Do you know how much it cost the seller to take care of whatever those issues were?
I know for sure that I was writing it down. The application for the inspection was $500,
Mm.
and then whatever the costs for correcting the issues. I don't know what these costs were. It was on seller, and the seller was telling me like, "Oh, it was already done," but we now know that the seller wasn't completely truthful. We don't know.
Well, and I think the bigger point is, would your clients have been happy to have to pay that additional $500?
Nope.
And instead, you as a good agent got that negotiated at an early stage, and it was not on the buyer. So good job to you.
Thank you.
National Association of Realtors, our office now has a lawsuit filed against them and the California Association of Realtors. And just wanted to update the public about that. I'm not going to talk much about the lawsuit, but it was interesting because not too many weeks after our lawsuit was filed, Zillow, Compass, and I think others joined, also suing the National Association of Realtors on similar but unrelated, similar issues but different facts. Still alleging antitrust, but in this case, they're trying to get control of who's going to end up with the big monopolistic one party, one entity app. Who's going to control the home buying app for the world or for the United States? And that's what they're suing about. I haven't read the exact specific complaint, the allegations, but uh, obviously we know that Zillow, Redfin, and some of the bigger brokerage firms like Compass, they want to have that app that everybody goes to buy homes because that's how they can lock in their commissions. So to me, it seems like they're passing the monopoly buck on from one to another. They're trying to figure out who's going to get the monopoly. And instead, what needs to happen is what we are alleging in our complaint is we need to, let the brokerages um, compete.
To me, that sounds like another monopoly. It's what's the point? You taking it from one big entity and putting it on another big entity. How is that not monopoly?
We have various lawsuits to keep an eye on against the National Association of Realtors. There's no dispute that they are a cartel. There's no dispute that they are operating a monopoly. The only dispute is exactly applying that issue to the facts in such a specific way that a court can rule that it is illegal what is being done. All right. Well, thank you for joining me, Oli.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the fund2000.com real estate podcast. If you have any questions on the legal side, visit my website, law4ca.com. That's LAW, the number 4, CA like California.com. If you have any sales related questions, or if you'd like to hire Oli as an agent, go to sold2000.com, sold2000.com.
Bye.